Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name's Nicole and I make content on self-care, books, and all things cozy lifestyle. But today we're going to be doing a mid-year freakout tag, which I've been seeing all over YouTube, and I really wanted to do one myself, sort of as a mid-year check-in to see how my reading year has been going. And the last time I did a tag was back in January, I think. It was my booktube newbie tag, and I just can't believe that it's been almost 6 months since I've filmed that video. It feels like such a long time ago, but a lot has changed since then, and I just want to check in and reflect on how my reading has been going, share with you guys some of the books that I've been really loving and some of the books that I just would not recommend to anybody. Since then, I've read 31 books so far, and I'm really proud of myself because one of my goals this year was to get back into reading, build a more consistent reading habit, and I think I set a goal for 50 books by the end of the year, and I'm way ahead of schedule. I've got the questions pulled up right here, and let's just go ahead and get started. The first question is, what was the best book that I've read in 2024? And that one is easy. It is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. So I have a hardcover right here, and this was actually one of the very first books that I read with my book club, and my friend chose it, and she did such an amazing job because this was by far our favorite book that we've read this year, and I have nothing but great things to say about this book. I don't think it's for everybody. There's definitely some trigger warnings in here, but overall this book was just so heartfelt and there was so many emotions, and it's just a book that I feel like is going to stay with me for a very long time, and I just haven't read a book that has come close to this one. So I've been sort of on a reading slump since then, kind of trying to chase the high from reading this book, so hopefully I'll find something that can kind of compare, but this one is definitely by far the best book I've read this year. The second question is, what is the best sequel that you've read all year? And I don't have any because I just got back into reading this year, but I have started a couple of new series that I'm really looking forward to, so hopefully by the end of this year I'll be able to answer this question for you guys. The next question is, what is a new release that you've been wanting to read but haven't read yet? And I have so many books that are on my TBR. I feel like I'm adding new books almost every single day, so this was a hard choice, but I did narrow it down, and that is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. So this is a historical fantasy, and I've read a couple of historical fantasies this year, and they tend to be pretty high up in my ratings. I've never actually read anything from Leigh Bardugo before, but I think she wrote Six of Crows, which I've heard really great things about, and I just really love this cover. This was a book of the month pick, and I was really attracted and intrigued by this cover, so this is one that I'm really looking forward to reading. The next question is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And this one was pretty easy for me, so it is Where the Library Hides, which is actually the sequel to What the River Knows, and What the River Knows is a YA fantasy. I actually borrowed that book from the library, so I don't have a physical copy on me right now, but I really loved that book. It was just like so adventurous and exciting, and I think the author did such a great job of blending genres. So it was like a historical fiction with a mystery element as well as a enemies to lovers romance, so that was definitely up my alley, and it left on a pretty big cliffhanger, so I'm just really excited to get my hands on the sequel. I think it releases sometime in November, so I'm definitely going to pick it up when I get the chance. The next question is, what is the biggest disappointment of this year? It is The Last Love Note, which is actually kind of surprising because it's the very first book that my book club read together, and I'm kind of embarrassed about it because I picked that book and I had really high hopes for it. It was about a recent widow who lost her husband, and she was learning how to love again, and it just fell super flat. None of us liked it, and that was definitely my biggest disappointment of this year by far. The next question is, what was the biggest surprise of this year? And for me, it was definitely Interesting Facts About Space. I have that book right here. Ta-da! So as you can see, I did put some bookmarks in here just to kind of note all of the places that I want to go back to. So I really had no idea what I was getting myself into when I picked this book up. It was a book of the month pick back in February, I think. This book was just really heartfelt. It is about a young queer woman named Enid who tries to navigate her life and her career and balancing her relationships as well as taking care of her mother. And I just really loved this story. I think it was just a very beautiful story of self-acceptance as well as belonging, and this one was just a huge surprise because the premise of it was kind of quirky, a little eccentric, but at the very end of it, this has definitely won my heart. So this one is probably in my top 5 of all of my favorite books that I've read this year, and I highly recommend this one. So the next question is, who is your favorite new author? And this isn't a new author by any means, but I just started reading her books this year and it's pretty easy for me. It's Kristen Hanna, and I've read 2 books by Kristen Hanna so far. I've read The Four Winds and I've read The Great Alone. I have The Women as well, but Kristen Hanna novels I feel like are just so deeply emotional and very powerful reads, but they can be a little bit on the heavier side. But that's what I love about Kristen Hanna's writing. She is just so good at capturing the human spirit and just really talking about the resilience and the strength that we all have within us despite going through some like really difficult things. And I've just loved all of the books that I've read by her so far, so she is definitely my newest favorite author for this year. So the next question is, who is your newest fictional crush? And that would be Bjorn from A Fate Inked in Blood. So I read this book recently. It's a YA fantasy that features Nordic mythology, and the 2 main characters are Freya and Bjorn, and they're both children of gods, and they each have their own unique superpowers. So Bjorn is a child of Tyr, who is the god of war, I believe, and fire. So he can actually control this like flaming axe. So he is described as a very strong and brave and fierce warrior, but he has such a soft side towards Freya, so I really liked that. I found it super endearing, and he said the funniest things, so I really liked the banter that they had, and this book was super spicy. So if you're not a fan of spice, you might not like this book. However, if you do like spice, then this one is definitely for you. It got really hot and heavy. Bjorn is for sure my newest fictional crush. The next question is, who is your newest favorite character? And I think it would be Lenny from The Great Alone. So she is the main protagonist, and we meet Lenny when she is, I think, 13 or 14 years old, and we follow her story until she's in her mid to late 20s. I loved Lenny so much because she was just so brave and strong, and I just can't imagine all of the things that she went through, but despite it all, she was just so resilient, and I just really resonated with her character. I feel like she had to grow up really fast, and even though she went through some really difficult things, I felt like she just had such a good heart, and I was just so touched by her story. So she is definitely my favorite new character. So the next question is, what is a book that made you cry this year? And I think I've read a couple of books this year that have made me cry, but I'm gonna pick a new one that I haven't talked about yet, which is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. I don't have a physical copy because I did listen to the audiobook, and that book was also really heartfelt and emotional, and I was crying because of the relationship between Elsa and her mother-in-law, just 2 really fierce women who would do anything for their families, and they had this really touching conversation about what it meant to be a mother and what it meant to provide for your children, even if it meant having to sacrifice for yourself. And I was just really touched by that. I was in tears reading that part of the book. The next question is, what is a book that made you happy? And I don't think I have any really like feel good, happy, just easy, lighthearted reads that I've picked up this year. But I did enjoy one of the short essays in here. This is Disability Intimacy, and this is edited by Alice Wong, who is an Asian American disabilities rights activist, who is also the founder of the Disability Visibility Project, and I will link that in my description if you'd like to check it out. And I really enjoyed the short story in here, which is called My Journey to Motherhood. It was definitely a feel-good story. There were definitely some struggles in there as well, so it wasn't all happy, but it was a happy ending, and I'm happy for her that her family got the happy ending that they deserve. The next question is, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought or received this year? And for me, I think it would be The Collected Regrets of Clover. This was a book club pick back in April, and I also did an entire reading vlog about annotating this book, as you can see here. And I think my friend who chose this book did such a wonderful job, because this cover is just so gorgeous with all of the different flowers blooming and the contrast between the story. So if you would like to know more about the story, you can watch that vlog, but I'll just give a very brief summary. Clover is a death doula in New York, so she spends most of her time helping other people transition to the end of their life, but because she has such a emotionally draining job, she ends up spending a lot of her time alone, and this book is all about her journey towards learning how to essentially thrive, kind of like all of the different flowers that you see on the cover. So yeah, I just think it's very beautiful, and this is one that I'm really proud to display on my bookshelf. Okay, we've answered so many questions, and this is the very last one, but the question is, what are the books that you need to read by the end of this year? So I've been reading a lot of library books for the past couple of months because I've been trying to save money and not overspend on books, but by doing that, I haven't actually been reading the books that I own. So I'm going to slow down a little bit with checking books out from the library and focus on my physical TBR, and I made an entire video on that, so I'll put that in the corner if you want to check it out. But I would say my priority would be Circe, because I really love Greek mythology. I've heard so many amazing things about that book. I also really want to read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I also have a physical copy of that book. I started reading it when I was in LA, but I didn't actually finish it. So that is going to be another one. And my third one is How to Solve Your Own Murder. So that was an aardvark pick, I think, and I really love mysteries, and I also love the cover of that book. So those three would definitely be my top books that I want to read by the end of this year. And there you guys have it. Those were all of the questions that were in this tag. I had so much fun filming this and reflecting on all of the books that I've been reading this year and kind of the direction that I want to go for the second half of the year. So I really want to know is, what was your favorite read of 2024, and what was your most disappointing read of 2024? Comment down below so that we can have a chat about it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today and watching this video. If you guys want to see more from me, then please like, comment, and consider subscribing to my channel. And as always, take care of yourself because you deserve it, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!